For a long time now, I've been looking in on the film festival experience from the outside, mainly through the guise of my favourite film content creators when they've attended and then made videos on their experiences and talked about all the films they saw early and the premieres they attended and all the actors they saw do Q&As and the directors that they met, and it just looked really, really great, and it just looked like an experience I definitely wanted to partake in myself one day. But it kind of feels like something that's far off because it feels like you have to know the right people or have a good enough following to get invited. But as of recently, I've kind of realized that film festivals are more accessible to the general public and general audience than you think. It's not like an invite-only thing. It's not like a critic-only thing. You can just get tickets if you're quick enough. And that's what I did. I planned to go to London Film Festival this year, and I got tickets to 9 films and saw them all. And those are the films I'm reviewing in this video for you guys. So let's just jump into it. The first film I saw was Nickel Boys. Now, I hadn't heard of this film before. I didn't really know anything about it, but from the short description and the poster, I thought, let me watch this. It sounds interesting, it sounds good, and it was one of the cheaper tickets I got. So I was like, you know what? Let's go for it. And I didn't really realize it was its like premiere showing, special presentation showing. So there was a short Q&A with the cast, crew, and director beforehand, and that was really cool. So I was happy that I kind of did that. It was a last minute choice, and I'm glad I did. And it was a cool first night experience. I think it was a good way to get the ball rolling. This film, I'm really glad I didn't know anything going in, but at the same time, I kind of wish I had even a bit of like prep, because this film is a tough watch. It's a really, really, really great film. It's very beautiful, but yeah, it's a very tough watch. I cried a lot at the end. Like, tears were flowing out. Like, it was reminiscent of when I watched The Iron Claw at the start of this year. I think I cried more to The Iron Claw, but it was very close. Definitely second most tears shed to a movie in a while, and definitely this year. Yeah, that ending really hits, and I think its emotional impact is built up across the whole film, and I think the long run time and the kind of amount of time you spend with the characters is what makes that ending really, really impactful. It is a slow burn, but I think the slow burn is what makes the impact so effective, because you spend, like I said, what feels like such a long time with the characters, and it's very low key, it's very atmospheric, it takes its time, but I think that feels more immersive, and it feels like I've lived a long time with these characters. So then the ending is very effective because I feel like I truly know these people, I truly like spent time with them. It doesn't feel rushed, it just feels lived in, and like it took its time, and it didn't feel like it was, because this is a film we need to rush through everything. It felt like, wow, I felt like I've spent the last 2 hours with these characters. So where they end up is like earned and also 10 times more impactful to me, because I feel like I was on that journey with them. So yeah, like it's such a tough watch, but I think it's also a really important watch. I think people should watch this. I haven't watched the trailer even after, so when editing this, I'm interested to see what the trailer looks like, and I'm not going to spoil it, but we'll see if the trailer spoils it. But this film is shot in such an interesting way. It's something I've seen before technically, but I've never seen it in a drama, and I've never seen it for this long. And that's kind of as detailed as I'm going to go, as vague as it is. Because I feel like this is best experienced when you don't know kind of how stylistic it is going in. But at first I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna love this, but by the end it immerses you so well, and like I said, the ending is so emotionally impactful. Again, only because the way it's shot is like nothing I've seen before, but it immerses me so much into these characters. And as soon as you start the movie, you'll understand why. Like, it's immediately, you're like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going conceptually, and I think it pulls it off. I think the emotional impact is so amazing, and I love when a film ties its craft, so the cinematography is directly tied to the emotional core, it's directly tied to the narrative. They're not separate, it's not flashy just for the sake of it, it's not inventive just for the sake of being called inventive. It's inventive because it truly pushes this from being just another film about black trauma and kind of pushes it into another lane, like its own lane. So it's inventive in the way that it makes sure this doesn't feel iterative or, you know, complacent or like, oh wow, just another film about black trauma, can we not move on? It feels like, wow, this needed to be told because it presents something new rather than something old or something the same. I haven't seen anything like this before, and I hadn't felt anything like it before. Despite feeling similar things that it's portraying from similar films, it takes itself in just a new direction, and I think that's really cool. I did hear some complaints. This is also the thing about film festivals, you can hear people talking about it and see tweets and stuff after. I heard some people complaining about the way it was shot being kind of confusing to them or taking them out of the movie. I saw some people saying it wasn't saying anything, it didn't have enough depth, it wasn't filled with substance, and I can understand that, but I think I just connected with it on an emotional level. Like it didn't need to say too much because it was presenting enough to me wordlessly. Maybe sometimes I think I'm biased to like feel emotions from certain movies depicting like black trauma in the past, because maybe it's just because I'm black and I'm like, oh, that sucks to think of that happening to me specifically, that sucks. And maybe to others they can just remove themselves because it's like not their history. I'm not saying like you have to be of the same like creed or whatever to connect with whatever's on screen, but sometimes I feel like there's a disconnect because I'm always like, oh wow, that was like so hard hitting, and then I see reviews, mainly from white people, not to like go that way, but and they're like, this wasn't saying a lot, or this wasn't that emotional, or just this wasn't that great, and it's just interesting, literally just interesting. I'm not like saying it was racist or anything when I overhear my like fellow audience members who are white, and they're basically like not, it just feels like they're just easily like, that was alright, like it wasn't really saying anything, and it's like, well, it was saying something, but it just felt like I like really connected with it, like it was speaking to me directly. And maybe that's just like a thing where there's gonna be a disconnect, or maybe it is just that maybe I'm biased then, maybe I have the bias to make it too positive and I'm ignoring lack of depth that it has. Maybe I'm easily easily saddened, and it takes more for other people to be saddened by it, and therefore it doesn't have a lot of depth. So there's both sides where either side could be missing something or either side could be gaining something too easily. So like, this is literally just me like discussing it or just like opening it up or just thinking about it. So I'm not saying anyone's right or wrong, it's just interesting to me. But yeah, I really like this film. I thought it was beautiful, I thought it was really hard hitting, I thought it was such a cool blend between kind of documentary style filmmaking and narrative, because this director is a documentary filmmaker. That was his last feature, was documentary feature. So this is cool seeing his first narrative feature still kind of take on from the realism of everything, but really tie it into being a powerful narrative. So it was a great start to the film festival, one of my favorites. Loved it a lot. So yeah, Nickel Boys, I'll definitely give a rice ceremony. Then the next morning, I saw one of my most anticipated films of the fest, Anora. Now this movie's been getting gassed up a lot over the past year because like it blew up at Cannes Film Festival, it won Palme d'Or, and I was like, okay, cool. I've heard of Sean Baker, I haven't seen any of his movies, but interesting that this just kind of felt like it came out of nowhere to me because I hadn't really heard of it before, and like already first thing I'm hearing about it is it's winning top awards at like the top film festival. So been on my radar since then, and in prep for the film festival I watched two of Sean Baker's previous works. I saw Tangerine and Florida Project. I've been meaning to watch those both for years, so I was like, you know what, let me just bash them both out because it makes sense for preparation to watch his newest film, and I did that. Tangerine was great, Florida Project was even better. So I was like, maybe this guy does have the juice. Maybe you guys are onto something. And happy to confirm that he really does, because Anora is really, really great. It's both a really fun movie and a really tragic, sad movie. I love the way it kind of contorts and twists itself throughout, because at first it's like, this is fun, this is silly. The whole like theater was laughing. I wasn't expecting, like, I don't know, I had like an envision of like serious film festival vibes from film festivals, but I mean, if something's funny, something's funny. So people were laughing their heads off. I think people were laughing a bit too much, I can't lie. There were some scenes I was like, guys, I don't know if this is supposed to be that funny. There's another one of those later, but anyways. And then by the end, everyone, I could tell they were feeling the emotions. So this film is great because it kind of exists as two films at once. Like the front half and the back half are very different, but they are tied together where the end won't work without the kind of levity of the start, and the levity of the start won't like become impactful until the heaviness of the end. And it's really good. I think Sean Baker is a good director. I like how he kind of has this sense of realism, and the characters are where that comes through. Honora, played by Maggie Madison. Maggie Madison's great in this film. She makes it, I reckon. I think half of the reason this film is so good is because her performance is so great. In both, again, she's very funny, but then she's very good at bringing emotions out at the end. So I just think this film is like so special based on its juggling of the two tones. And then like the cat and mouse chase throughout the movie is great. Yeah, I just think it's a great movie. I don't really know, like, I don't have a lot to say about why I enjoyed it. I just think it's just like a really well crafted movie. Performances are good. The writing's snappy. I think the direction's fun. There's some really well edited gags. The ending is quite hard hitting, and I think it's worth the hype. I think people haven't overhyped it. I think it was really good. I would say it's probably my favorite Sean Baker film, but Florida Project's kind of edging in. So I might have to rewatch both and see, or rewatch Honora. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely a great film. Really enjoyed it. Another rice ceremony. Then that afternoon I watched A Real Pain, which is Jesse Eisenberg's newest film. To be frank, I didn't like Jesse's directorial debut, When You Finish Saving the World. I just thought it was a bit of a letdown. The trailers looked interesting. I like Finn Wolfhard, and I was just expecting a bit more from it, and it was just a bit boring. And it just didn't do a lot for me. So when I saw this was a Jesse Eisenberg directed film, part of me was like, oh, do I want to get tickets for this, considering I didn't like his first film? But I saw the reviews were positive, and it just looked completely different. It just looked like not like a similar genre or tone to When You Finish Saving the World. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to give this a try, because obviously some directors don't start off with the best work and then they progress to make better things. Or some filmmakers, you know, no one has a complete, well, some people do, but not a lot of directors have a completely amazing track record from the jump, especially. So I was like, you know what, let me just give this a chance. And I really liked it. I thought this was really funny. This is another film that ties some really emotional scenes with a lot of really, really, really funny scenes. I thought this was probably the funniest film I saw at the festival. The humor in this is great, but that's to be expected of Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, because they are just funny guys. So, but at the same time, I appreciate that they're funny already. So I liked that I was also given a lot of emotional depth from both of them, especially Kieran Culkin. This performance is really, really great. He's amazing in this. He's definitely the aspect that kind of takes us from that was cool to like, wow, that was great. That being said, I feel like his struggles and like his character struggles and the story going on there wasn't delved into enough. And then when I was looking at what this film's being put forward for at the awards, Kieran Culkin is Best Supporting Actor. So maybe that's it. Maybe because I was more interested in his character, Benji's character, I wanted more from him. But I guess the film is about David, Jesse Eisenberg's character. So maybe that is it. Like, I'm not gonna get as much from Benji as I'm wanting, because he is a supporting character. But at the same time, it feels like so much is put towards him as the focus, the emotional focus, that it just felt like they were seconds away from really, I don't know, doing something super impactful. But at the same time, I kind of feel like the ending being very underwhelming in a way. I don't say that, like, you know, anticlimactic is kind of the point. It's to do with what the character's going through and the kind of cycle of it. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what, it kind of makes sense that there's not a big emotional, oh my gosh, that was so sad, I cried thing. It's more just like a subtle kind of sad ending. And the more I think about it, even talking now, I'm like, you know what, it's less of a negative than I'm thinking about it as, and I think it might be on purpose. And at that point, I'm like, you know what, I like that, because it's not like an accidental, oh, we really should have done that. Actually, you're right. If I said that to Jesse Eisenberg, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, no, it was on purpose. So because of that, I'm now kind of leaning towards it because I'm cool with it as an on-purpose choice. I'm not cool with it if it turns out like, oh, we just didn't think about going further with the emotions. I'm not sure. So, but overall, very funny movie. I like just a movie with a large cast of characters that are all kind of learning to get along. Like, I just liked the small cast that all had their distinct personalities and distinct thoughts and feelings, and they're all tied together by a singular thing, that being their Jewish heritage and the Holocaust, basically. So I really enjoyed the different ways they explored that, the different like ages of the people, and therefore their different experiences with being Jewish, and kind of how close to the horrors of the past they were, and who it affected directly, if it affected them or their family members. Or yeah, it was very interesting. At the same time, it was really funny. I just liked how it tied that line so closely but so carefully, and it was surprisingly deep, but at the same time a real funny movie. So if you're looking for something that can kind of get you sad and get deep, and film about depression and addiction and how you deal with that, or anything like that, I'd recommend this. But also, if you're looking for a funny movie that you want to just laugh at, I'd also recommend this because you get both, and I think that's great. A film that can be deep and actually present something to you, and the ending shot was like really impressive. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but the start and the end, really cool. But then also, yeah, it's quite sad. But it's also really funny. I don't know. The more I'm talking about this movie, the more I'm like, I really like this movie. Also, it's shot really well. I like the shots of scenery and locations in Poland. It was really well shot. It's really well presented. The music's great. The characters are great. All their interactions are really great. There's a lot of great acting in this. Kieran Culkin, Best Supporting Actor nomination. Yes, please. I'm just going to say that. Maybe that's also why they put him in Supporting Actor, so he has more of a chance. Okay, makes sense. See, the more I talk about this, I'm like, you know what? I'm liking it. In fact, it was going to be a rice bowl, but now I'm going to bump it up to a curry rice. Then, the next day, I watched a film called Last Swim. Now, this was one of the ones where I was completely going in blind, where I literally never heard of this movie before. I just looked at the poster, thought that looks interesting, looked at the description, thought, wow, that sounds interesting, because it's about a group of friends on A-level results day. I was like, well, that for me was literally this summer. So, you know what, it feels timely, it feels like I'm going to connect with it, and I need a newcomer indie UK movie to watch at London Film Festival. It feels fitting, so I thought, let me check this one out, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I took the chance, because I really liked this film. I think it was really impressive for a feature debut. I think the performances were great. It was quite touching. It was quite sad at times. There was a lot of humour I felt like I connected with because of the UK slang and the UK humour, and it being Gen Z. It felt like very relatable, and therefore like it was doing a good job. There's definitely a plus I can give to it, that it felt realistic as a UK Gen Z film. It felt accurate, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah, it was just like a fun movie about like London in the summer is like one of my favorite places, specifically London in the summer, and it definitely accurately portrayed that and the vibes of that, and the feelings of what it's like during A-levels and A-level results, and like your friends and going to different places and moving on, stepping up to a different stage in your life. And yeah, definitely felt realistic in that way, and definitely connected with that on a deep level because of that. This film's quite hard hitting. I wasn't expecting it to get, again, a lot of sad movies, but as sad as it did, as deep as it was, I was expecting just like a fun thing with some drama between the friends or something. But like, no, this from the start, you're like, oh, it's this kind of movie. And I like the way it goes. The performances were good. I like the way every character in this friend group kind of gets their time to shine. Everyone feels important. It doesn't feel like, oh, there's the main friends and then the other people who are kind of just set dressing. No, everyone in this friend group feels like they're actually friends with each other, which is important because somebody who's in like a decently like a similar sized friend group myself. I'm friends with everyone, and everyone's friends with each other. Like everyone kind of has their own personal connections, and that forms the group as a whole. It's not like, oh, there's a couple of duos that happen to just hang out together because they've got like a mutual. No, everyone is friends with each other, and everyone gets to show that in the film, and the main character gets moments with every single character. And I love that because it's important to the narrative, but then it's also important to making sure this friend group feels real and feels genuine and feels like we can connect to them, because it's important through this friend group that we the emotions of the film are really pulled off well, and I think that was a really cool like group dynamic that like went over well. So yeah, I think this film's shot really well. Again, it's all just really impressive for a debut feature. I just think it's all like really well done. It feels very professional, it feels very great, but also like this kind of like indie feel. It definitely still feels personal and small scale, and yeah, I really liked it. It just creates a vibe that I can truly connect to, feel like I've been in, and like it feels like just realistic in a new way that feels very distinct and very London and very UK and very Gen Z in 2024. Like it's so timely, and I love that. So yeah, really great movie. I think the ending could have been a bit better. I think the ending was a bit anticlimactic. It felt very similar to A Real Pain's ending, and I think A Real Pain did it better, and I'm not sure why this didn't feel as strong, but I think there was more build up to something that didn't happen, whereas like I said with A Real Pain, I realised that it almost didn't feel like it needed that climax ending, whereas this might have actually needed a bit more. But other than that, and I think the pacing being a bit slow, like it could have been a bit shorter, but then again I still enjoyed it, and I think the length is what allows for all those character connections I was talking about earlier. So actually maybe the pacing's fine. Other than that, really, I think this is a really cute movie. Got me in my emotions more than I was expecting, and laughing also more than I was expecting. So a good little movie, definitely a curry rice. Then later that evening, I watched a Japanese film called Happy End. This was my first non-English language film of the festival. Well, I say that, but Anora was, like, a lot of it was in Russian and Armenian, so that's like a half truth, but it was the first fully non-English language movie I'd watched at the festival, and it was really good. Again, hadn't heard this movie before the festival, and didn't really know a lot about it other than that it was set in Japan and was a near future dystopian film, and that was enough to draw me in, and that's literally what I got, and it was really great. I love the use of technology in this. It's again a near future, so it's not like really far-fetched stuff, and it uses its small budget effectively just to be sinister enough but also close enough to something that could definitely happen, so that it felt very chilling and kind of scary and timely, and not like completely out of the question. Like this feels like something that could genuinely be in our future / present even. Like this was so well done because I wasn't ever taken out. If anything, I was put in because I was like, wow, this feels real. There were times when some more far-fetched sci-fi concept would be put in, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, this is near future and not just an alternate present. And I like that because it was so immersive. It just felt like I was watching a possible thing happening in modern Japan. Like, you know, it just felt like a fictional narrative and not a fictional narrative based in the future. And even then, it felt like a fictional narrative based in like reality. It based in stuff that could genuinely happen and stuff that is happening and stuff that's happened in the past. And it's so rooted in Japanese history and government issues and the kind of the way people in power abuse their power over citizens, just like at large, like, you know, the general public, the general population. And I think it was really good. I liked how it had a lot of depth, but this was all kind of playing out in the background of this relationship between the two best friends and how their differences in how they responded to the way the government and the police and all these people above them, their principal, were abusing their power. How they reacted so differently was the crux of the film and was the conflict of the film. So I like how it took such a, you know, large, over-encompassing theme and conflict and narrowed it down to be very personal and small scale to do with these two friends, because then it made it more manageable, it made it more understandable, it made it less of like a, oh, here's lots of big sweeping statements or big sweeping opinions on Japanese government or, you know, Japanese society. They exist, yeah. In the text you can see that, but instead of making it so broad, let's whistle it down to how these two friends are reacting to those things, and it's like reactionary, and I think that was really powerful. I think it was really good. especially for someone like, I don't know a lot about Japanese history and the Japanese government, and this and the Q&A after with the director helped me to kind of understand it, and I think that was only possible due to the very personal, small scale way of dealing with all those issues, because it made it more digestible for someone like me who doesn't know a lot to kind of slowly but surely understand what's going on, because I can connect to the emotional aspect, definitely, because that's universal. So it's using like a universal way of understanding these things to then portray it to audiences who might not immediately understand the kind of racism that exists in Japan or the societal issues. So I think that was really cool. From a technical standpoint, this film is like, it looks so great. The cinematography is very subtle in its brilliance. Like, I just think it's very low key, but the way it presents Japan and Tokyo as a city is really effective. Yes, it's visually pleasing to look at because Tokyo is just a visually pleasing place. It's a great setting, but the cinematography works to make the city feel claustrophobic, to feel restrictive, to feel trapping, and that works to elevate this dystopian narrative. In addition to that, the music in this film is great because there's a focus on music, and the actual music used is just really fun to listen to. But then also the very opening and the very ending piece of score are like insane. They set the tone so well and then leave the tone so well. Like, it's so kind of atmospheric and haunting, but also intriguing, because it's like, oh wow, I'm excited to watch this, but at the same time this is kind of scary. And that's kind of what the whole vibe of the film is. There's a lot of intrigue, but at the same time there's some real shit going on. So it feels both like I'm excited to learn more about the world, but at the same time I'm not, because I don't like this future. I don't like this possibility of what's to come, and I like that kind of balance it has. That all being said, this film's surprisingly light and funny. Like the middle chunk, there's like a lot of jokes, and I guess that's to be expected considering we're following a lot of teenage characters, but I did like the dynamic between all the friends. And yeah, there was a lot more humour and lightheartedness than I was expecting, considering all I knew going in was this is a dystopian. But I think again that helps to then elevate the more dire aspects of this dystopian world, because after all that fun, it's like, oh yeah, here's the reality. And I think that does definitely elevate it, following these young, naive characters who are then kind of having their worldview changed and ruined by this kind of introduction of what life is really like, really, and what the people in power will do, and how much power you don't have against it. So I do like how the levity is used to increase the dystopian aspect. So yeah, this one's really good. It's really powerful. Yeah, there's like something, I don't know specifically what. I see, I'm really good at praising films, but I struggle sometimes to give critiques. But there was something holding it back from being like a amazing, perfect movie. I think actually, I've got it. I think the characters could have been a bit deeper. I think we could have explored even deeper how their conflict was coming about. It was towards the end that it started to work for me, but for a while I was like, I don't know if I'm feeling a lot from these characters, and I feel like I wish we were getting more. So I think that's where my weakness is with this, that the characters could have done more to really pull me in. It was when I fully understood, oh, this is what's going on and how they connect to the narrative. I was like, okay. But for a while it felt like I was just following these people doing a whole lot of nothing. And then also I think the dystopian technology aspects could have been further used. I think there could have been some more haunting scenes of like, oh wow, that's scary but also realistic. But there was enough to satisfy. But yeah, those are my negatives, and that's why it's not a perfect movie, but that's definitely why it's a solid curry rice. For you, no time has passed at all. For me, it's been like 2 weeks since I started recording this video, because I got a bad cold and it was like affecting my voice, so I couldn't record. But we're back. I didn't really need to tell you that, but I just thought I would, because it's fun to know stuff, I guess, behind the scenes knowledge. But anyways, back to it. Next up, I watched We Live in Time, starring Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, and from the trailers alone, it was very obvious that this film was going to be a tearjerker, and it was. I cried a bit, like a tiny bit. I wasn't like bawling or anything, but this movie, yeah, it hits you in the feels. I'll say it's also just a very, very good film all around. it's definitely carried by its two leads. Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield are great in everything they do, and they're amazing together. They've got great chemistry, both in like a fun way, but also in like a sad way. So it worked on both ends of their relationship when they first meet, you know, the kind of banter they have, getting to know each other, but then also the chemistry of really selling the fact that they've been together for a long time, and that they've been married and they've gone through time in a relationship, and that they have had a child and all these things. So I think their chemistry is really great, not just in kind of like one way. It's great all around. This movie is surprisingly funny. As much as it is sad, especially towards the end, there are lots of funny moments, and the screening I was in, people were laughing the whole way through. There are lots of good jokes about Weetabix. Yeah, it felt very British in nature, and it just kind of felt down to earth in that way. I think it looked good visually as well. Yeah, I do think it could have really impacted me a bit more. I wasn't like, as I said, I wasn't like tears flowing kind of sad. It was more just like, that was a fitting yet sad, bittersweet conclusion. I was kind of expecting like a real kick in the nuts, but I still enjoyed it. So it's not like I'm really complaining here. It was just that I was kind of expecting like a real, like, wow, that like a La La Land kind of emotional impact, you know. But not everything could be La La Land. But no, it was still good. There were some really great moments. There was one scene in a petrol station. When you see the movie, you'll get what I mean. Speaking of, actually, it's very strange that this movie came out in the US already, but it comes out over here in the UK New Year's, which is very strange considering it's a British movie. But we don't get it for months later. But that is just another discussion to be had about how poor UK distribution of films is. But this isn't about that. It's about the actual film's quality, and I think it was a good movie with some good performances from its two leads. And it's just an overall pretty. It's one of those movies that I think I could recommend to anyone really, and they'll be happy with it. It's kind of like a general crowd pleaser. Not to say it's like not doing anything interesting or it's not anything special. I just mean I could be asked, oh, what's in cinemas now that I can watch in January? And I'd be able to say, We Live in Time. I do think that's a good movie just to be able to recommend to someone. You know, it's got some fun bits, it's got some sad bits, and it's got some actors people like. So it's definitely just like a really pretty good movie, you know? It's not amazing. I don't think it will like... I don't know if it will become iconic, like an iconic British film. Maybe it will, but for me, it didn't have that lasting staying power. But I still enjoyed it, you know? It's just a pretty good movie. And not too surprisingly, seeing as this is kind of my go-to rating, We Live in Time is a curry rice. Next, we have one of my most anticipated films of the festival, Queer by Luca Guadagnino. I'm a big fan of Luca's past films. Call Me By Your Name, like many, was my first of his that I watched. And I enjoyed that at the time. I thought, wow, this is really great. And then it just got better from there. Bones and All is one of my favourite romance movies of all time. And one of my favourite horror movies, but I kind of classify it more as romance than horror. Love that movie. And then Suspiria, his Suspiria remake, really great. I haven't watched the original, admittedly. I know it's not good, but I really like his Suspiria film. So I will check out the original and compare. And then Challenges this year, really loved that. So all of his films I really enjoy. And I'm happy that I wasn't disappointed by Queer, because it definitely keeps up his track record. This film is very different to his past films, I would say. It's a lot more kind of experimental in nature. There's some really interesting editing choices, and the visuals are very distinct. And I just wasn't expecting that. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but it's all very kind of surrealist and ethereal, dreamlike. Adjectives like that help to describe it, but it's hard to describe unless you watch it. It's just, it goes into the psyche of the characters a lot more in very imaginative and distinct ways. The filmmaking here is used really interestingly, and I just think it's a really different movie, like I said, and I really like it because of that. And because of that, because we kind of dive deep into the minds of the characters, specifically the lead character played by Daniel Craig, who's amazing, but I'll get into that. It's quite a tragic film, like actually, it's quite sad, but that's what makes it so impactful, is that you see this kind of broken man who's he's not like the nicest guy. It's not like a lovable protagonist. He's kind of like annoying. He's kind of a piece of shit. But you kind of see reasons why he acts the way he does, why he's so desperate in certain situations, why he kind of like doesn't have self-respect for himself in certain ways. But the more you like see about like how he thinks and how he just wants to be loved, etc., it's quite sad, and the journey that this film takes went in ways that I was not expecting, but it definitely really works for the narrative. There's some other really distinct and beautiful ways that the film presents itself, specifically in the main Mexico City setting throughout the film. It's kind of, I'm not sure what it is specifically. I think it's like matte paintings that kind of evoke old Hollywood style filmmaking for the backgrounds, and it just creates this very stylistic visual aesthetic for the film that blew me away. There were just some scenes that are very slow paced where we follow Daniel Craig's character walking through the setting, and these scenes are just amazing to look at. It's almost like a moving painting, not just that the background is looking like a painting, and I'm pretty sure it is. The whole framing of it all just looks like a painting. It's just amazing, and I can't wait to watch this film again so I can look at those scenes again and appreciate them again. And really, yeah, they were just gorgeous eye candy. This film is both really good narratively and also really good visually, both in distinct experimental ways, and I really appreciate that. It definitely feels like, again, Luca was going for something very different and distinct and out there for this film, and he's always innovating in his films. None of his films feel the same, but this just felt in its own league of doing something really different, and I just still really appreciate that from it. Daniel Craig, his performance in this is so good. He helps to sell this kind of, like I said, tragic, sad man, and yeah, obviously we know he's a good actor. He's such an iconic actor, but this is such a great performance. I do think he will be nominated for Best Actor. It's that good. He says so much, often without saying a lot, but then oftentimes he will say a lot, and that also says just as much. It's so powerful, it's so good, it's subtle. I feel like the ending of this movie might not work for everyone because it's not kind of obvious to you what the point is, but I think it worked for me, and yeah, he's great in this, and so is Drew Starkey. I've only watched like 1.5 seasons of Outer Banks, and I couldn't remember he was in it, to be honest, but he's great in this, so this feels just like my first introduction to him, to be honest. Yeah, amazing actor. He helps to make the movie also incredible. Him and Daniel Craig definitely together sell the movie and create this amazing dynamic, which is just elevated by everything that I was saying about Luca's direction. It's really good, and I think this is definitely up there in my favorite Luca films, definitely in my top 3. It's just a really, really good movie, and I don't think it will be as beloved as his others, but I think that's fine because it's not for everyone. You know, it's not meant to be understood by everyone, and I appreciate that. I really like that about it. Definitely a very strong rice ceremony. And we are coming to the end. I know this is a chunky video, but that's fine. If you're still here, it means you're enjoying it. The last day of the film festival, I watched 2 animated films, which is pretty good. I wanted to kind of have, variety with everything I watched, and having 2 animated films was definitely variety. First up, I watched Flow. I didn't really know anything about this movie other than I'd seen a few short snippets. It had a really interesting art style, and it was about a cat, and it had no dialogue. That's all I knew. And this was a surprisingly really, really great film. I loved the wordless storytelling, the visuals. It was very cute, but also very sad at times. It said a lot without saying anything, and that's all you really want from a wordless film, especially one about animals. This is such a impressive movie because you can feel the artistry so strongly. It does feel like, one artist's vision propelled through multiple people, a team. It definitely feels kind of indie and small scale in its nature, but also kind of really professional and high level at the same time. This movie is really great. I don't have a lot to say other than it's just a really great movie. It's great for all ages. It's funny at times. Again, without saying anything, it's just kind of that wordless physical comedy. And then the same with the sadness. Like the sad scenes really hit because you're with the characters for a long time. It's like a journey across the way. It reminded me of Ponyo in terms of there's some flooding and characters on boats and stuff like that. But yeah, this film's really special. I think it's really beautiful, both visually and narratively, and I just think it's very simple in nature and therefore simple in what I have to say about it, which is just watch it when you can, wherever you can. It's a really great movie. It's got some great messages that can be understood by any audience member of any age. I just think this is a great animated film for families, for anyone. It's really special and just a good animated movie about animals and lots of great animals. I won't spoil what animals are in there because it's kind of fun when you get introduced to new companions. It's like, oh, it's this animal. Oh, what animal's next? So I won't say who or what I should say, but there's some good animals in there. So yeah, I think anyone can enjoy this really. I do think maybe, again, it's one of those things where I think the ending could have been really emotionally impactful, but it kind of just wasn't. It was still good. I liked the ending, but I was kind of expecting another like, oh, animated movie that made me cry so much ending movie, but it wasn't. But that's fine because I don't think that's what it was going for. But I think that's why it's not like, oh, perfect movie, but it's still really good. And that's why Flow is a curry rice. And then lastly, I watched an anime film called The Colors Within, which is actually from the same director of one of my favorite anime films, A Silent Voice. And just to spoil, this movie isn't to that level, but I still think it's really good. It's very cute, it's very simple, but I think it's very effective because of that. It's mainly the music which is the best part, which is fitting because it's a movie about music. So I think it does its job effectively then. It's very funny as well. It's a very cute movie. The characters are all enjoyable. I like the dynamic between the main three, the way they meet each other and kind of interact, and the way they all have different desires and drives towards this music goal, but they all come together to form a band, and the crossover between them once. It's really good. I think it's really cute. I think it's quite short and simple, but I quite enjoyed that. It didn't overstay its welcome. It didn't try to do too much. It was just a pretty decent film with some great music, some really great visuals. It's animated beautifully. I really love the colors in this, which is again fitting, hence the name, The Colors Within. Yeah, it's nothing like game changing, like I think A Silent Voice was so like impactful emotionally for me, but this movie is more just good vibes, some good character arcs. It's engaging throughout. The whole time I was like, oh, I wonder how this is going to play out. I wonder if they're going to finish their songs. I wonder if they're going to be able to do all sorts. Like, I was invested in all their struggles and all their goals, and the ending sequence was great because it's just a lot of music that we've heard come together, finalized, and the songs are great, and it's fun seeing all the characters come together and all the story plot points come together at one big emotional climactic point. And I just think it's really good. It's a very fun movie, very simple but very effective. Could have been better, sure, but I think it was just good for what it was. I would say this is a lower curry rice. So it's still a curry rice, but I think just everything I watched was good, so I can't help it be curry rice or above for everything, to be honest, because everything was good. I picked a good bunch for the film festival. But anyways, that was everything I watched at London Film Festival, and I had an amazing time. It wasn't too stressful, it wasn't too much, I didn't get bored of watching a load of films. I actually had a really fun time, and I would definitely do it again. This is not going to be my last film festival, this is just an introduction, and a great one at that. So look forward to not just my next video, but whatever the next film festival I may attend, because I'll definitely do another video like this, because it's just really fun talking about a bunch of films that I've seen at a film festival. I really like this. So yeah, thanks for watching and have a nice day.